Hey, how you doing? It's your boy BrogiNaric back again with another review. And in this video, I'm going to be reviewing Candyman 2021, the sequel, sort of reboot of the original Candyman franchise, which was directed by Nia DaCosta, a new up-and-coming director. And we're going to be doing a review. Spoilers will be later on in the video if you want spoilers. Time code is in the description if you just want to skip to that, but I'm going to go non-spoiler then spoilers. But before I get into it, don't forget to like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel. We're growing right now. Use your help, but yeah, do that for me. And all right, let's get into this. Review. So Candyman 2021 is, like I said, sequel to the original. There were, I think, 2 other movies after the original movie, which came out in 1992. It's nowadays considered a horror classic. I don't remember the director's name, but it was based off of a story written by Clive Barker or Clive Baker, whatever, the guy that did the Hellraiser films. Anyway, good movie. It's a classic. It has its problems. It's not like the perfect film, but it is a horror classic. Really good. And when this film was first announced, a lot of people were thinking it was Jordan Peele's movie because that was the name that they pushed out there, but he was just producing it. He was helping out Nia DaCosta to get this film off the ground. I think this is like her third, maybe like her second feature-length film, if I'm not mistaken. And I was more intrigued to see this film once I heard that she was announced to direct the Captain Marvel sequel for the MCU, the Marvels. So I was like, okay, let me see this film and get an idea of what her direction style is. And the Candyman is a classic cult horror icon. One of the few ones that are black. It's him. You got Blackula. You got old boy from Tales of the Crypt, not Tales of the Crypt, Tales of the Hood. I guess Bones from Snoop Dogg. Might be a few others, but he's one of the top ones. Beloved character, played by Tony Todd, icon. And once I finally got around to seeing this film, because I'm not a horror fan, but I have seen this film. It's probably one of my favorite horror movies. So I was excited for this film. And I'm just getting that out there now. I was excited for this film. And I'm going to go from positives to negatives. Because overall, I think it's a good film. One thing I will say, if you're going to watch this, please, and I do mean please, watch the first movie first. Because this movie definitely will be better if you remember what happened in the first movie. Because this movie does kind of pick and choose certain things from the first movie, but it definitely builds off of the first movie in certain ways that I thought were really good, and then other ways that I thought were not as good. Because they take certain things that were established, change it for the better, but then also change it for reasons that didn't really make much sense to me personally. But I think as being one of these modern reboots / continuations of classic horror films, I think it does a good job by the end of it, kind of building. It doesn't completely shit the bed like other films attempt to do, So that's one of the main positives. The visual style is really good. There's a lot of use of mirrors because you say Candyman's name 5 times in the mirror, he'll come out, kill you and whoever's in the area. The use of mirrors is used way more. The special effects are a little bit better because they can do certain things, like the way they interpret his powers are different. It definitely relies more on the mirror aspect as opposed to him just, and that might be a bit of a spoil, but I'll just say his powers focus more on the mirror aspect, which I thought was cool. And some of the visuals kind of rely on that as well. The violence is fine. It's somewhat similar to the first one where the violence is not a lot and it takes a while to get to the violence, which is similar to the first one, but I think the first one did it a little bit better. The acting is really good. The cast is good. You got Yahya Abdul-Mateen as the main character, Anthony. You have Tiana Paris as his girlfriend, Brianna, who is my favorite character. You got Coleman Domingo, who plays this guy named Bill or William. He's really good. And there's a few other people in it. This is a solid cast, and I think most of them did a good job. But my negative starts to come in when it comes to our lead character, Anthony, who's played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen, who has a connection to the first movie. I'll just leave it at that. But I like Yahya Abdul-Mateen as an actor, but his character in this movie I didn't think was that good. And I'll get more into that in the spoilers. But like, he's not as interesting as Helen. He is in a way very similar to Helen, which I thought was interesting. But I don't know. Like, the movie focuses a lot on him, and he's not that sympathetic. Like, deliberately not that sympathetic. And I think that was an attempt to make the girlfriend, who's played by Tiana Paris, who's, Monica Rambeau from WandaVision in the MCU, to make her more of the standout, but it's not too much of a focus on her. But she's kind of, I wouldn't say she's the main character, but her character does have more prominence in the film than I thought she would in the beginning. But Anthony's character, the performance I didn't think was great. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. And there's certain weird tics and certain things that Yahya does with that character that just didn't work for me. Like, there's a lot of him staring wide-eyed, and he's obsessed with saying Candyman's name, which makes no sense. Or this is like a trope in the film where everyone just for some reason just has to say Candyman for no fucking reason. Just like, yeah, let's try it out. And it's like, no. Like, by this point, it should already be fairly established that do not fuck with this. It will kill you. But, it's a horror movie, so people got to act stupid when they need to. The soundtrack is not the soundtrack, but the score. I don't remember hearing the classic score from the first movie, the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Like, I don't remember hearing any of that throughout the movie, which I thought was a bit of a miss. There's certain elements. Okay, so the first movie does. Okay, so let me get this out of the way. If you see anyone, and I mean anyone, on the internet complaining that the new Candyman movie is a bunch of woke bullshit that's like gone woke, so it's going to get broke, makes no sense, because the first movie was already woke. It was already about gentrification, police brutality, black on black violence, and white saviorisms. Like, it was already in the first movie, and this movie does do a little bit more of that. And I think some ways it work, and other ways it doesn't. Because there were some, at least for me personally, there were some moments that were a bit cringe. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head right now, but I remember there was one line in particular where they were talking about something about gentrification and either cultural appropriation or some shit, and it was a bit cringy. But then there's other times when they do it and it actually worked. It actually felt more like an actual black person wrote this. So it tears a bit. Some of it worked, some of it didn't for me. And there's some certain things that happens in this film, especially by the end of the movie, where I thought it almost felt like this was a different movie by the end of it, where it's like, I don't think this is a cool idea. I don't think Candyman is the right character to do this with. But if they want this to be a franchise, by the end of it, they kind of change the franchise from a horror movie. This might be a slight spoiler, but in a way, it almost changes from a horror movie to a superhero movie, in a way. Like a gritty, superhero movie, almost to the point where, this might be a bit of a spoiler, but almost to the point where by the end of this movie, it kind of felt more like a Spawn reboot as opposed to a Candyman reboot. And I'll get more to that in the spoilers. But yeah, it was a little rough. And some people will like this, because like I said, it's not completely bad in terms of elevating what was from the original, but I don't think it's as good. And I think it kind of changes the story a little bit. Certain elements, like I said, they add is cool. Other elements is a little, I don't know if disrespectful is the right word, but it seemed a bit, I don't know, it didn't sit right with me at certain moments. And there was other things that kind of, this movie being like a reflection, a little personal, but like certain things that happened in this movie were reflecting my life that kind of messed with me a little bit, so that might have played an effect of how I felt about this movie. I'll get more into that in the spoilers as well, but not a terrible film. I don't think it's a home run hit. This movie does remind me a little bit of Jordan Peele's Us, where it's like, oh, it's good, but then there's certain story elements that don't quite work for me, and it's something I have to think about, but it's not quite as a mind fuck as what Us is. It's a bit more straightforward, but I think Us is still better, and I noticed certain story elements that Jordan Peele likes to pen his movies that are also prevalent in this. And it's like some, like I said, some of it worked, some of it didn't. But watch it for yourself and make up your own opinion about it. But as for Candyman 2021, for a grade, I've been sitting on this. If I were to give it a grade, I think I would go. I didn't really think about this one. I'm gonna have to edit all of this out. For a grade, I can't go B minus. B minus. It's one of those type of films, and like I said, I'll get more into some of my issues in spoilers. But that's my non-spoiler review. Thanks for watching. And if you want spoilers, stay tuned for spoilers because I'm gonna get into them right now. Okay, so let's get into spoilers. So, one cool thing, the movie opened up with the Candyman by Sammy Davis Jr., which I thought was cool. The Candyman can. Na, 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 na. Yeah, that was cool. And then like everything was reversed like a mirror, which nice. One of the things this movie did, which was kind of interesting, kind of funny, and almost comical to a degree, was the Candyman motif. Because in the original movies, the motif was bees, and he was called Candyman mainly because the honey, but it didn't quite make much sense. And in this movie, there's a new story that you see in the trailer where it's like, oh, it's this guy that lived in the projects. He would give candy out to people. Black man had a hook on his hand, maybe mentally challenged, I don't know. And he was giving candy to kids, and then one day there was a razor blade to candy. Police was looking for him. They found him. They beat him up and killed him. And then they found out that he was innocent, and that's kind of like the news story for Candyman, which I was like, okay, they changed the origin. But then when you see the movie, you find out like, no, that's just a different version of the legend because, over time the legend has changed, which I thought was a cool idea. And as the film goes on, you find out like, no, that's not like a new version of the story. It's an addition to the story because Candyman in the original movie was a black man who was the son of a slave, who was an artist, painting rich people's portraits, falls in love with this white woman, gets him knocked up, the daddy has him killed, he gets lynched, he's dead, he comes back for revenge, tracks down, conveniently runs into his sort of reincarnation of the woman that he was killed for, and, that's his thing. And it kind of, it's an interesting idea, but Candyman never sat right with me because it's like, okay, you were a black man who was lynched, but you come back and you just kill other black people. Like, you don't even try to get revenge on the people that killed you. Like, that was always the disconnect for me with Candyman. Where it's like, he's interesting, but he's not like someone I'm like, oh, that guy's cool. Because it's like, why are you doing this, brother? Like, come on now. Well, in this movie, they kind of, they change it where it's like, Candyman isn't just one black guy that was killed. He's like a history of the different black people that have been wronged by the injustice of white supremacy, and all of their spirits are like an amalgam within Candyman. So he's not just that guy from the 1800s. He's also the dude in the 60s, a dude in the 50s, a dude in the 70s, which was the candy guy in the 70s, and there's like some kid in the 80s. Like, it was like all of the Candyman is an amalgam of all these different black men that's been killed. Sounds like an interesting idea. Changes the story a little bit, but okay. I'm kind of like, okay, like I'm riding with it. And it gets crazier towards the end, but and I'll get back to that. But so you get the first movie. There's not a lot of horror in the beginning. It's mostly people telling the stories of what has happened allegedly around Candyman, and that's interesting because it's like it's more like an investigation. You have this whole it's this white lady. She's in the hood, surrounded by all these hood ass black people. What's gonna happen? Like, there's all this intrigue in this movie. None of that's really there because it's just this black guy who's an artist, and he's a struggling artist, he lives with his girlfriend who's well-to-do. You know, they're well-to-do black people living in this gentrified neighborhood in somewhere in Chicago. And he's just a failing artist who's very pretentious, not really likable. That was my problem. That was one of my biggest problems. Is the main character Anthony. I didn't like his character. There was nothing likable about this character besides the fact that he is Yahya Abdul Mateen. He's kind of charming and he's a handsome guy. There's nothing really else, and he's black. It's like he's a black man. Other than that, there's really nothing to like about this guy. He's very pretentious. He's a fucking hipster. He's a bit of a poser. Like there's a moment where he's trying to show off his art, and there's this one white lady who's a critic who conveniently looks like Virginia Madsen, and she calls him out on his bullshit where she's like, oh yeah, you're just another artist who's come back to the hood talking about gentrification and crime and this and that, but you're trying to profit off of it. And I'm like, she actually got at him, and it was kind of like, yeah, she's actually kind of right. Like you're not really doing anything new here. You're not really necessarily helping anyone either. Very similar to Helen in the first movie, where she's this, white woman college student. She's getting all these stories. She's going to make a thesis, make a book. She's like, I don't really care about these people. I'm just trying to get this story. But the difference between Helen and Anthony is by the end of it, Helen's a hero because she did risk her life to go save the baby, which, of course, we find out is Anthony, which is another problem with the character. But there's no really heroic redeeming qualities about Anthony, because as soon as he hears the Candyman story and he starts investigating it, he's just, well, even before he investigates it, because he just hears it and he's like, oh, this is great. I can make art off of this. This is a cool way for me to be different and cool, but I can also express myself and be black, because I'm really black, and I'm gonna put this out in the art world and people gonna know how real I am. It was a bit ridiculous. So, and he's just like, oh, say his name, Candyman. Like, there's been documented murders that is a little suspicious, but fuck it, just say Candyman. Just say his name. Come on, say his name. And then it's like, why? Why are we doing this? Like, there's numerous times where people just saying Candyman for no damn reason. That happened in the first movie too, granted, but it's a bit ridiculous. And then there's a whole thing with the bee sting. He's got this fucking bee sting that's like growing over his entire body. Not once. There's like a good 30 minutes in the movie, the damn bee sting that's taking up his whole arm, and not a single damn person has told this man to go to the fucking hospital to go get that shit checked. He's still with his girlfriend. This is before they got into their fight. He's just got this big ass scar, fucking infection on his hand. No one's like, hey, you should get that checked out. Not a single damn person. Makes no fucking sense. But anyway, so the other thing that makes no sense is once you find out that Anthony, Yahya Abdul Mateen's character, is the baby from the first movie, the fact that when I forget who it was, someone had brought up the Candyman story to him, and he was just like, what is this? And I'm like, so did you grow up in Chicago? Because I kind of remember hearing that he was supposed to be the baby, and that was what was kind of confusing throughout the movie before they revealed it, because he's acting like he's never heard of Candyman. I'm like, so did you not grow up in Chicago? But he's like, no, I grew up in Chicago. I just didn't grow up in Cabrini Green. I grew up in the South Side. Cabrini Green is on the West Side. So I don't know nothing about what's going on over here. Now, I don't know nothing about Chicago. I don't know if Chicago's really that big. And it's like, if you live on the West Side, you've never heard of anything going on the South Side and vice versa. But anyway, he grew up in Chicago. All these murders and these rumors about Candyman exist, but apparently he's never heard of it. When he runs into Coleman Domingo's character and he tells him the story about the Candyman that he knew when he was a little kid, which was the guy handing out the candy that he inadvertently kind of got killed because he screamed when he saw him, which that was creepy. If a big, weird, tall guy comes through a hole in the wall with a hook hand and he's just not talking, so I don't think he could talk, but he's just like, hey, here's some candy, and it's like, that would have creeped me out too. But anyway, so he tells him that story. And then I think I can't remember who was it was either it was the brother Troy. I'll get back to him. The brother Troy tells the story about Helen, but it's a different version of the story where it seems like Helen was crazy and she tried to kidnap the baby and all of that. And he's never heard of this story. And that makes no sense, because if he grew up in Chicago, I find it hard to believe there was never a moment in his childhood or at a family reunion where someone was like, hey, little Tony, it's a good thing you still here, because you know it got crazy when you was a little baby. You know, you was some crazy white lady kidnapped you and almost threw you in a fire. Like, no one mentioned that. There was never a moment when he was a kid in elementary that was like, hey, you heard about that crazy white lady that kidnapped a baby and then set herself on fire? Like, not once in his life did he ever hear that story. Makes no sense. But anyway, Troy. Okay, so I think one of the things that kind of shocked me with this movie, and like I said in my non-spoiler review, in terms of the reflection, uh, this is a little personal, but so the movie, there's the character Troy, who is Brianna's brother, who's a gay guy, there's a whole moment where he's bringing over his boyfriend, who's a white guy, to meet his sister. And the reason that was funny, because I went to see this movie with my brother, who is he's a gay guy, and conveniently when we went to see this movie, he was bringing this new guy that he just met, who's his boyfriend, is also a white guy. So I thought that was kind of funny, the parallel of that happening in the movie, and this is literally happening in my life. And then the Troy aspect was weird for me and my brother, because we just recently had a thing happen in our family with a cousin of ours, and his name was Troy, and he just passed, and that was kind of weird. So it was just, that was kind of a weird coincidence of how that happened with this film. But anyway, Anthony sucks as a character. So the movie goes on. There's an unnecessary use of CGI, I feel. There's a moment where Anthony is at the critic's house, and he's now fame. He's getting a little bit of fame because after he did his art piece, the guy that was the curator, him and this girl that's like his assistant, they ended up getting killed because they were fucking stupid, and they looked at the mirror and said Candyman, so Candyman came out and killed them. And there's a little bit of a buzz about his artwork because he's trying to get, say his name, get the Candyman stuff out there. And that was that moment where it was in the news and they said Anthony's name, and Anthony, instead of being like, oh shit, this guy died, this girl and this woman died, he's like, they said my name on the news. That's kind of cool. And like everyone's kind of looking at him like really, dude? And like, yeah, that was one of the reasons why I didn't think he was that compelling of a character. But anyway, he's hanging out at the lady's place. He tells her to go say Candyman. She's like, oh, I'm not going to do it. She's an idiot. She does it. And he has this trance where he looks in the mirror and he sees the Candyman from the 70s in the mirror, but it's CGI for no reason. It's him and the guy, but it's CGI, and he's looking and he's, mimicking, and oh, his hand is diseased and his hand is a hook and all, and it's like, why is this CGI? It was no need. It didn't look god awful, but it was unnecessary. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you could have just did that practically. It's supposed to be a fucking mirror. But anyway, so that happens, and then there was a cool shot where he leaves, it zooms out, and you can see the side of into the window and the side of the building, and then you see her getting killed. Because in this movie, unlike the first movie where Candyman was like a ghost, but he could also be physical, in this one he's more of a ghost when you don't see him unless you're looking at a reflection or some sort of reflective surface, which it plays into the motif. I wasn't huge on it, but because I wanted to see Tony Todd, because he's Candyman. I'll get more into Tony Todd. So, but it was an interesting use of special effects. There's the moment with the girls in the bathroom with theirs fucking stupid, and then they do the thing. I thought it was funny that the little Asian girl, they got to like, 3 or 4, and she got the fuck up out of there. Smart. But they ended up getting killed. While the other black girl was in the bathroom when shit went down, and you could see a bit of his reflection in the flip up mirror or whatever. So that happens, and there were certain things where there were certain edits, a few, I could think of like maybe 2, where the movie would make these hard edits, and it's like, did I miss something, or is the movie trying to not show me something? And that happened a few times. Excuse me. Especially when Anthony went missing and the girlfriend was looking for him because they got into a fight and he's been missing. So she went looking for him. She goes to the cleaners because that's where the guy Bill is, who was once again the kid who saw the Candyman of the 70s. And he's like this older guy who's like, he's like, the projects is not what they used to be. And these white folks is coming in and gentrifying everything and trying to get the police watching us, keeping us locked in and all, it's just not what it used to be. And So she's there. She sees his hat. She gets kidnapped. And then after she gets drug away, it cuts. You don't see who drags her away, but then it cuts to Bill, and he's like, he said, I think he's like, oh, my plan was almost destroyed or something. And I'm like, what is he talking about? Then it hard cuts black, and then you hear a voiceover like, oh my God. I think it was either a man or a woman was like, oh my God, the Candyman killer, the artist, da da da, he's trying to hurt people. I need help. And then it's a hard cut to the church. And I'm like, what's going on here? This is when it gets really weird. So it turns out, after it's been confirmed that Candyman is, it gets, no, this is when it gets confirmed. Because the whole time, the artist, Anthony, he's been painting these brutalized depictions, abstract depictions of different black guys' faces. And you find out the reason he's doing that is because he's been possessed by the spirit of Candyman. And somehow, this kid Bill, he's an old man now. He realizes he's the only one who's realized that Candyman isn't just a spirit of the guy that died in the 70s. Candyman is an amalgam of all these different black men who's died, I guess, in the Chicago area. I don't know, or maybe just the Cabrini Green area. I don't know. It's a bit ambiguous. But he's an amalgam of the hate of the black men who died, and their spirits have been trapped in this hatred, and they're out and they're angry, and which is an interesting concept. But then Bill somehow knows this, and his plan is, well, gentrification is happening to the ghetto, and I don't like it. So I'm going to bring back the vengeful black man ghosts to scare off the white people so I can keep my decrepit hood from being, impoverished hood from being gentrified, which makes no sense to me. Like, gentrification is bad, but like, I don't think bringing in a murderous ghost to kill the people to stop the gentrification is the best way to save the impoverished hood. You get what I'm saying? The fact that he was, now that I think about it, the fact that he was a black business owner who owned or at least operated a fucking cleaners was actually doing more to save the hood than bringing a fucking ghost to kill the white people who were gentrifying his hood. That made no goddamn sense. So, continuing the film. So that's his plan. And then they kind of make sense to the first movie, where there was a reason for Candyman kidnapping the baby. Because in the movie, it was just more like he kidnapped the baby just to fuck with Helen. But in this movie, they're like, no, he kidnapped the baby, Anthony, because he wanted Anthony to be his next victim. You know, he's always like, be my victim. So they're kind of like, no, Candyman, the original Candyman, chose Anthony to be the next Candyman. So then that makes me think, so are the black people that have been killed, has it been because of injustice and racism, or has it been because Candyman has set them up? Granted, the justice and racism exists, but were they accidents of circumstance being killed by white supremacists, or did Candyman set them up in situations to be killed by white supremacists? You get what I'm saying here? Because he chose Anthony. Did he choose the others, or were they just random? And if that's the case, why did he choose Anthony? You get what I'm saying? Like, if he was lynched by white people in 1890, why is he still holding a grudge on other black people in 1970 and 2019? Why didn't he just kill the people that killed him in the first place? It didn't make sense to me. That didn't compute. And then, like I said, so then that happens. The fucking bee stings is all over him. He gives him Candyman has a fucking uniform. Like even the Bill character is like, well, he's different, but there's those certain things you just gotta keep to make it all work. So he cuts his hand off and he jams the hook in and ties it down with a strap. He gives him a big ass fur coat because that's always the style of Candyman. And he's the one that called the police So the police are on their way because he lied and said, because he's framing him for the murders of Candyman. So, and that was the other thing that didn't make sense, because all the other guys, from what we've known, were wrong because of the injustice, whether it was racial profiling or something of that. With Anthony, he hasn't done anything. He's just been at the wrong place at the wrong time, which I guess kind of ties into the whole, black people getting killed by the police or by whoever because of wrong place, wrong time, Emmett Till type shit. So maybe that's what they're tying into. I don't know. But it was like his death seemed more random, or the way the Bill guy was setting it up seemed less justified, as opposed to mentally challenged guy who was wrongly killed for being being a suspect, as opposed to this guy. He didn't really do anything in the real world for him to get unjustly murdered, but whatever. So the girlfriend breaks free. She had a pin. She gets out of the duct tape. Why he duct taped her, I don't fucking know. He thought all of this out, but duct tape was what he used to keep her bound together. So she gets free. Bill tracks her down. She's like in another building. No, she's in the church, but she comes out through the basement. They go into another abandoned building. She tries to hit him with something, but it's too heavy, so she can't hit him. He knocks her down. He's about to kill her, or he wanted to hold her down or some shit. She pulls out like some piece of scrap or something, and she starts stabbing him. Like, she just stabs him. And at first it was like, okay, she stabbed him. Then she kept stabbing him. And then she kept stabbing him. And then she kept stabbing him. And I'm like shit, like, chill the fuck out. Like, this is gone beyond justifiable homicide to just straight up manslaughter. And then the boyfriend, Anthony, Yahya Abdul, he comes in. He's all fucked up. He's like, I think he's dead. And he's dying because, lo and behold, the bee stings are fucking killing him. I don't know, once again, why the doctors didn't do anything. He went to the doctors earlier when he peeled off his fucking fingernail, which was very good effect, I would say. My brother was freaking out because of that. It was very Cronenberg, like from The Fly. It was very much like that. But anyway, so they're there. Police are coming. She's like, don't worry, we're going to get help. The police come in, and you don't see the cops, but you see the shadows of them. They come in, they're like, freeze, don't move, bam, bam, shoots like 5 shots or whatever. And it was weird how it was shot. This was another weird thing, that how it was shot. I think this was the other edit. So she's holding him. Cops come in, bam, bam. It kind of freezes. You don't know what's happening. And then she's looking, and I'm like, is she dead? Are they both dead? Like, what's happening? Somehow you see the shot. He was on the floor, like probably like 3 feet away from her. She's over in the corner. He's now dead. And I'm like, well, how the fuck did he get over there? Wouldn't they both have gotten hit by the bullet? But anyway, so he's now dead. The cops pet her in the back of one of the SUVs. Oh yeah, before he died, it was either Bill or Anthony were, I think Anthony was the one who was like, he's accepted that he's now the new Candyman. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry I brought him back, but I guess I'm the new Candyman. And if I die, just, say my name and I'll come back to save you. Okay. So she's in the back of the SUV. Conveniently, the 5 or so cops that had pulled up, just conveniently, just all happen to be white cops. Not saying that that's improbable, but I feel like in Chicago, I don't know how often that would happen, especially in a black area, that they would all be white, but whatever, it's a movie. So she's in the car. She's like upset because these cops just unjustly killed her boyfriend, even though he was a suspect, but they didn't apprehend him. They just straight up shot him. And so one cop is trying to get her to comply and lie. Basically, he's like, hey, your boyfriend was a murderer, and he jumped at the cop, and the cop didn't have enough time to stop him, so he had to take him down. Or you were an accomplice, you helped him out, and you can get locked up. So which one do you want to do? Like, you can either go along with our story, or we can make up a story and get you locked up as well. So she's thinking about it, she's upset, and she's like, you know what, I'll confess, but like, can you let me look in the mirror? And the guy's like, what? She's like, yeah, I'll confess. I'll do whatever you say. Just let me look in the mirror. So he just, like an idiot, made no sense, but like an idiot, he just takes the rearview mirror and lets her look at it. She looks at the rearview mirror and she's like, Candyman. And the guy's like, huh? No, she's like, Candyman. Probably about the 3rd time, the guy's like, what are you doing? Candyman. Like, he's never heard of this Candyman shit. He's a cop. You would think the cops would know this story because it's been around since the fucking 50s at least. You would know, like, oh yeah, that's that old Candyman stuff that them black people be talking about. He would know something about this, but he's just letting it ride. So she says Candyman 5 times. The damn bees just come out of nowhere. Yahya Abdul-Mateen pulls up. He's like floating. This is like a new thing, but Candyman like floats now. He doesn't just pimp walks up to motherfuckers like Tony Todd. This motherfucker's just floating. So he floating, got bees all around him. You can't see him because it's mostly invisible. And he's like slicing the cops. Cops is getting bloodied up. But then you see some of the reflections, and he's just there with the bees, just killing all the cops. Like he's some like, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, is this? I'm like, I wanted to say he was Batman because I'm like, is this nigga Batman? I'm like, no. I said to my brother, I'm like, no, this is no longer a horror movie. This is a superhero movie. This nigga's a superhero. This is Spawn. This is not Candyman anymore. This is Spawn. This is the reboot of Spawn. They've turned Candyman into Spawn because now he's a superhero, and he kills all the cops, and that don't sit right with me. The fact that now the Candyman is supposed to be like a spirit of vengeance. You know what I'm saying? Like Candyman being the black spirit of vengeance is like the ghost of O.J. Simpson coming back to save George Floyd. That don't sit right with me. It just that didn't compute. That's a different character. Like the idea of a black person who was killed wrongfully and he comes back to be the spirit of vengeance for black people. That's a cool idea. That ain't Candyman. That has never been Candyman. So it's a cool idea, but I feel like they attached it to the wrong character. But now this nigga's a superhero, and this is the other thing. They broke the rule, which made no sense. If they would have did this, it would have made more sense. So the girlfriend was the one who invoked Candyman, and as the rules has been established, if you say his name 5 times, that's your ass. You are dead. You and whoever's in the area is dead. She said Candyman. She said it. The girlfriend, Brianna, she said Candyman. But he only killed the cops. And I'm like, that ain't the rules. She should be dead too. Like if she knew it was that's what I thought they would do. If she knew it was a sacrifice, she's like, I'm about to get fucked up, but fuck these guys. I'm taking them and me out. That would have made more sense. But no, so then it's like, so can Candyman choose who to kill and who not to kill? Because if that's the case, he's not sympathetic. Because once again, if you was lynched by white people, why are you killing these black people that had nothing to do with it? So it don't compute to me. So he uses force powers to unlock the doors, so she gets out of the car. I think she's still handcuffed. And then that happened, and he says something to her as Yahya. He's like, just call me whenever you need me. So whenever you say Candyman now, if you the right person, he not gonna kill you, but he gonna kill whoever else is there. That, like, once again, that fucked up the mythos. So before he leaves, he transforms into CGI. Fucking CGI Tony Todd. He's Tony, like a young Tony Todd from like the original movie, but he's CGI for no reason. Just use Tony Todd's face. He's a ghost. He is an old ghost. Just let him be an old ghost. Like, so he's CGI Tony Todd, and he's like, oh, thank you for freeing me or some bullshit. I gotta go now, but I'm the ghost of Black Lives Matter. So if any black man is injustice, just call my name and I kill all the white folks that did you wrong. Because that's what I do now. I stand up for black people. Forget all those black kids that I killed in the first movie. Like that little boy that I cut his dick off. But don't worry about all that. But I'm here to save black people now. That's what I do. Peace. And then that's the end of the movie. She just stands there as more cops pull up to, I guess, shoot her too, because we've already established that these cops don't give a fuck in this movie. So I had some issues with the film. I'm just gonna say that, like character-wise, but direction-wise, most of it was good. Story-wise, it could have been better. Like I said, the main character Anthony, not interesting, or at least not sympathetic. Like I said, there was no real sympathy outside of what he was a baby that almost died in the first movie. But him as an adult, he's a fucking asshole. Nothing interesting about him, nothing cool about him, nothing redeemable. Like I said with Helen, Helen was an asshole, but she risked her life to save the baby. He don't really risk his life to save anyone, because it wasn't like he jumped. At least it wasn't shown this way. It wasn't like he jumped in front of the bullets to save his girlfriend. It was just he's just dead now. Somehow the bullets missed her, even though she was just holding him. If maybe that was what was implied, I don't know. Wasn't handled very well. But yeah, like I said, it's an okay film. It's not, is it a decent enough, if it's a good enough sequel to the first movie? Yes. Is it a great sequel to the first movie? I would say no. I think they could have handled it better. Like I said, if they would have killed her as well at the end of the movie, that would have made more sense. But now that he's a superhero at the end of the movie, that didn't make no sense to me. Even when we was leaving the theaters, there was a group of people, and he was black. There was a group of people. There was one guy that was like, "What bullshit was that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like that shit didn't make no sense. Like he's like saving motherfuckers now. Like he Captain Save a brother all of a sudden. I don't know, but that was weird. But yeah, it had its moments, and then it had certain moments. Like most of the kills were good. Well, actually, no, the kills were all good. I didn't think any of the kills were bad. It was just the invisibleness of it. I thought was a bit. I would have liked to have seen Tony Todd or the other guy. Yeah, because Tony Todd's barely in the movie. Like when Candyman is killing people, it's not even Tony Todd. It's the 70s Candyman that you mainly see when you do see him, and it's like, but I wanted Tony Todd. Why do we have this new guy? Is Tony Todd too old to do it? I don't know. That might have been it. I don't. Last I saw, the man could still walk, so it wasn't like he was doing anything too crazy. So I don't fucking know. But yeah, let me know what you thought about the film in the comments. Am I tripping? Am I overthinking this? Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you liked or didn't like about the movie in the comments. Very interesting to hear your thoughts, because I think most people are rocking with it right now. So I might be the lone asshole. I don't know. But let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos. Peace.